Yeah, after the press conference is over, that gentleman in the front row, blind gentleman, yeah, he'd like to talk to somebody about.
I'm getting there. We got a lot of people around up. Sorry about that. I think we're at 1:30. Am I correct? Anyone have the time?
1:38.
Yay. I know Alicia Reece, Representative Reece will be here, and Senator Tavares was here and may be back in a little bit. My name is Brian Rothenberg. I'm the Executive Director of Progress Ohio, and I want to welcome you all here today. I've spent the morning with a very courageous person who I did not know before today, Miss Lucia McBath. I unfortunately knew of her because of the tragedy of Stand Your Ground. And we're here really, I'll let everybody speak for themselves at this press conference, but it's a very simple message, which is to the governor and the Senate president: stop this bill, kill the bill. It's a very simple message, and it has a very real impact on people's lives. So with that, I would like to first introduce Reverend Jawanza Colvin of Olivet Institutional Baptist Church, and I want to thank him for making the traffic track up, given all the snow yesterday up north.
Thank you, Brian. To my colleagues in ministry, Ms. McBath, and certainly to this Coalition of Conscience, which have gathered here this afternoon. We are here with one collective message, not here in Ohio. I could think of so many other things we should be discussing, both in our communities as well as in our state house, other than this bill. We should be talking about education equity. We should be talking about building our communities. We should be talking about how do we ensure that every Ohioan has a quality of life that is comparable to the best that our healthcare system, a world-class healthcare system, should be able to offer. But instead, we're talking about something that really has no place in a discussion in a civil society. The truth is, this is Ohio. This is not the OK Corral. This is the Midwest, not the Wild Wild West. And so the discussions that we are having really should be geared around how do we take our community and our society to a place where we can be ensuring quality of life, not ending life. No child, no African American young man should be able to be concerned about walking down any street and be concerned that somehow his life might be threatened by the color of his skin, by any other threat other than the fact that he, as a citizen, as a resident of this state, this great state of ours, has the right to move freely, unencumbered, unmolested, with the freedom of access to all that our great state has to offer. So I am certainly looking forward to working with all of those around me, and certainly these around me represent all those in our state, working together in the faith community, certainly our elected officials, as well as, again, this coalition of conscience that are moving toward preventing something that does not have to be here, because it has no place here, and working to make sure that is the case.
And, next, I'd like to invite up to the podium one of the leaders of the progressive community in Ohio, the president of the Ohio NAACP, and a good friend of mine, Sybil McNabb.
Good afternoon. Usually I don't like to come behind a minister because ministers have a way of expressing many of your views. But this minister, the only thing that I can say behind him is that I stand firmly in total agreement. I represent the Ohio Conference of the NAACP. We represent over 70 adult units throughout the state of Ohio, 20 youth units throughout the state of Ohio, and the list goes on. But in our representation, and especially with our concern with our youth, is that this Stand Your Ground is a kill bill. It's a license to take lives without any restraints, without any protection for the public at large. And then we say, in this United States of America, in this progressive, one of the leading countries in our world, that we turn our citizens loose based on their emotions to make a decision that decides whether a person lives or dies. Then we take our finances and support them through our safety enforcement. I think it's important to recognize that, first of all, there's different points here, but the one I think is most important is that our lawmakers in Ohio, the Ohio Law Enforcement, the Fraternity Order of Police of Ohio, the Ohio Association of Chiefs of Police, and the Ohio Legislative Black Caucus all stand with, and the moms and the mayors throughout the state all stand against this bill. We're also asking that our Governor Kasich, looks and does not move on this bill to give us time to really thoroughly make a decision and to really to kill the bill. It's a kill bill, but we want to kill the bill. And we're asking that also that House Bill 2, if it becomes a law, it will be one of a stand your ground. Since a growing body of research that have even passed the law have seen homicides increase, it has not served in any positive way in any instance throughout the state of Ohio. Throughout the country too, but we're talking about Ohio because that's where we live. That's where our families and communities risk their movement throughout this state and throughout the cities in Ohio because of the Stand Your Ground law. So we're asking that our governor would hear the voice of the people with our concerns with Stand Your Ground, the Ohio Conference of the NAACP, along with the National Association of the NAACP, along with our regional representation, all stand firmly against Stand Your Ground. And as we stand against it, we are standing our ground to see that the careful and protective action is taken in behalf of this bill. Woo.
I'd also like to thank all of the attendees. Some of them will not be speaking, but they include Lucia McBath, Reverend Colvin, Ms. McNabb, Representative Alicia Reece, who you'll hear from in a little bit, Cincinnati Councilman Wendell Young, who you'll hear from in a bit, Aricka Turner, who you'll hear from in a bit, P.D. Talley from the Ohio Unity Coalition, who may get here, but she's got a conflict, Alicia Reece of the Columbus, Ohio Alumni Chapter of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. Boy, that's a long one. Amy Pullis of the Ohio Coalition of Gun Violence, and our representative from Moms, Julie Eichhorn. And joining late if possible, Charleta Tavares, and I may have missed somebody because it's all behind me. I'm sorry, Pastor Snyder, it's right behind me. So, the next speaker I'd like to invite up is Lucia McBath.
Good afternoon. First, I'd like to say thank you to Progress Ohio for inviting me here today on behalf of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, which I am the national spokesperson for. I have come to Ohio today specifically because I and my organization are very concerned about House Bill 203, which currently is sitting in dormant, but possibly may be voted upon in the state of Ohio at some time in the future. Having been directly affected by this bill, my son Jordan Davis was murdered November 23rd, 2012 in Jacksonville, Florida. the man that murdered my son is using that same legislation, the stand your ground legislation, as an immunity for his criminal behavior. There were charges that were brought against Michael Dunn for the boys, the 3 boys that were with my son. There's been a mistrial, a hung jury on my son's charge, specifically because of the stand your ground statute that was in the jury instructions. I firsthand have knowledge and understanding of how critical the stand your ground legislation is. I understand completely that it gives immunity to the criminals. It broadens the scope in which they are able to use their guns on innocent victims. It gives them complete authority to shoot first and ask questions later. I am here today because I am imploring your legislators, but more importantly, your governor, to kill this bill. The ramifications, the implications, should you enact this bill, you will forever be haunted by. I think that you will begin to see a tremendous increase in the number of justifiable homicides based upon this bill. So as a victim, I stand here before you asking you, please, as citizens of Ohio, make your voices heard. Begin to build citizen coalitions, organizational coalitions to stand against this bill. Thank you.
And now, one of the other great progressive leaders of our state, Alicia Reece.
Thank you. Before I get started, I do want to just say our prayers are with you, and we stand with you. And Jordan Davis's life will not be forgotten or go in vain. I'm State Representative Alicia Reece. I'm president of the Ohio Legislative Black Caucus, and pleased to join Moms Demand Action and Progress Ohio and all NAACP, Ohio Student Association, our clergy, all here today for one purpose, to stand up against stand your ground. One of the things that was interesting is that while we were in Cincinnati after the Trayvon Martin tragedy, we were asked to have a rally with the National Action Network. And I was in Cincinnati, and we worked to get a rally going at the Federal building. We had over 1,000 people in less than 48 hours, all saying how bad Florida was, and we need to stand up and stand with Trayvon Martin's parents, stand with the country and the nation to say how bad Florida was and stop stand your ground in Florida. Left the rally and got home, and I just happened to say, let me Google Ohio and stand your ground. And I Googled it and saw that while we were out of session, 203 had been introduced in Ohio. And I said, why in the world would we be introducing one of the most polarizing pieces of legislation in the country in Ohio when we know what it does when it goes bad? We're not saying what could happen, what would happen. We know what has happened when stand your ground goes wrong. And so the Ohio Legislative Black Caucus at that time launched a grassroots petition drive that we got through churches around, and it just caught on with all the groups getting involved. And we delivered 10,000 petitions in a short amount of time to the governor's office, to the head of President of the Senate, and to the Speaker of the House. We had a rally that brought together folks all over, progressives from all over the state of Ohio, everyone from Catholic priests to Baptist ministers to AMEs to students, and we said that this is wrong. We're going in the wrong direction. We had students who, you know, you have a sit-in, the famous sit-in. Our students did a die-in into the streets to show what could happen when stand your ground goes wrong. And so today, while we have slowed down those efforts in Ohio, we have not stopped those efforts in Ohio. And no one, no parent should be afraid because someone wears a certain outfit or they listen to certain kinds of music. We call that freedom of speech. And no law should be on the books that allows an individual to gun a person down because of their freedom of speech and hide behind the fact that I'm afraid of them. So we stand in solidarity as we stood when we found out the bill was introduced. We're calling for not only to stop this bill, but to also call on the governor to not sign any bill that will contain the language of stand your ground. Our children have value, their lives matter, and we cannot have a law on the books that allows for kill at will. So we support this effort and we will keep fighting until we kill this bill and this idea in the state of Ohio. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. And next we have from Cincinnati, and we thank you for coming up, Cincinnati Councilman Wendell Young.
By now, everything you need to hear, you've already heard. But I do want to tell you that I came here today to be able to take part in this press conference and speak against this bill. It's bad legislation. I used to be a police officer, 25 years in the city of Cincinnati. I've seen my share of senseless violence. I know what it is to go to someone's home and tell them their loved one will never come home again. And I can tell you, you never want to be on the receiving end of that message. And so it baffles me that the state of Ohio would even consider passing a law that will make possible a twofold and threefold increase in the numbers of families receiving that very message. Stand your ground laws are those kinds of laws that have good intentions, but have unintended consequences. There's nothing good about arming a person with a weapon and allowing them in the heat of anger to take a life. There can be nothing good about endangering our police officers who constantly run the risk of trying to evaluate who has a lethal weapon and who does not. There can be nothing good about allowing gun traffickers to bring even more guns into Ohio, and the only way law enforcement can figure out whether that person is doing something illegal is to see them in the actual sale of the weapons. And there can be absolutely nothing good in being in a shopping center with children listening to music and finding themselves under fire simply because someone felt disrespected. There's nothing good about stand your ground laws. We are adequately protected. Some people argue it's a matter of self-defense. There is no place in this nation where you're not allowed to defend yourself when doing so is reasonable. But shouldn't there always be at least a requirement that you avoid violence whenever possible? I've been a cop, had my share of violence. And I've seen too many cases where simply walking away would have ended the situation. And I've seen too many cases when a person who had a gun chose to use the weapon instead of exercising common sense. We should not pass into law an opportunity for people to be foolish. Let's tell Governor Kasich, and let's ask the states who have this not to pass and not to keep stand your ground legislation.
And our next speaker is Aricka Turner of the Ohio Student Association.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aricka Turner, and I am here today because I believe in the power of the people to enact positive change in our communities, change that will lead to enduring peace, true equality and liberation, and the collective advancement of all people. I am here because a grotesque attempt has been made to induce unnecessary fear in our community. And it is threatening this beautiful vision I have of peaceful and constructively advancing societies. Stand Your Ground, or the Kill at Will bill, is a direct contradiction of all that is good and positive when we compare it to matters of true importance. The general consensus amongst proponents of the Kill at Will bill is that the bill seeks to extend the grounds in which they may defend themselves in life-threatening situations. I have heard proponents urge that because criminals will know that they may be shot and killed for attacking the wrong person, they are deterred from doing so. I have also heard proponents claim that the bill will not turn Ohio into the wild, wild west. These unsupported claims cannot be farther from the truth. A study conducted by Texas A&M University supplies statistical proof that not only is Stand Your Ground a colossal failure at deterring crimes of robbery, burglary, and aggravated assault, but Stand Your Ground has also led to a significant 600 more homicides per year across states with expanded castle doctrine legislation. This concerns me. I am concerned by such policies that increase the situations in which subtle conflict may be escalated to the point of bloodshed and death. I am concerned by policies that are not meant to equally protect all people, regardless of race, creed, sexuality, ability, age, citizenship, economic, socio-status, etc. I am concerned by policies that seek to further divide us by encouraging us to fear one another based on elements of diversity that should otherwise be the tools that bring us closer together out of sheer curiosity and respect. I am concerned by policies that threaten the safety of our Black and brown brothers and sisters throughout Ohio. I have no desire to witness more heart-wrenching situations like those of Trayvon Martin and Jordan Russell Davis, in which 2 children were not protected by Stand Your Ground legislation and subsequently lost their lives to blatant ignorance, racism, and hate. I am concerned by violent-induced policies that take precedence over the hunger pains felt by so many children right here in Ohio. A policy that takes precedence over the innate right Ohio children have to a quality liberatory education. A policy that is seemingly seeking to take precedence over making sure all children in Ohio have a stable and warm place to call home. We should be collectively investing our efforts into loving our children, feeding, clothing, and educating our children. We should be focusing on replacing zero-tolerance policies with restorative justice in our schools. We should be diverting our attention towards showing our kids how nonviolent conflict resolution is exponentially more powerful than any man-made instrument of violence. I am strongly against the Kill at Will bill in Ohio because I not only care about my future, but because I have a deep and unyielding love for my family, friends, and community. Thank you.
Thank you. For future generations. Senator Tavares has not gotten back from her committee meeting, I don't believe yet, so she will not be here. So at this point, we'll take questions. And Lucia, I have a feeling some of the questions are going to be for you, so why don't you come on up here, and if you have questions for anybody else, please let me know. Any questions?
This passed back in November. As far as I know, the Senate hasn't even assigned it to a committee. Are you getting word that it's going to start up again here? Or?
That is our concern. Any movement towards even looking at this bill, preparing to revisit the bill, we're actively working now to make sure that that doesn't happen. We have to speak up, we have to speak out now before it actually happens.
Have you compared what's in the Ohio bill to what Florida has on its books currently, and how close are they? Because
they're very, very similar.
I was going to say the supporters of this one have said that this is not what Florida has, based on how it works in court and using it as a defense and such.
The bills are very similar. I will tell you that what I've understood just by being here today is that when you talk about the other components with the
The reciprocity.
Yeah, that is not directly related, Florida law does not have that caveat, but that concerns me here, you know, that individuals will be able to, you know, use that caveat of it here. So, you know, really stand your ground, whatever aspects there are of it, it's just not a good piece of legislation. There are so many different components in different states, it really doesn't even matter. The fact that you could use that immunity to walk away free, that you would take no accountability, even if you are the individual that is creating the conflict, that you can use that as an immunity and walk away. The fact that you have no accountability to step back, you know, without escalating the confrontation, no duty to retreat. And in every state, I know that that caveat is a part of it in every state legislation. So it doesn't matter what's added or what's taken away. Overall, the bill is a very bad piece of legislation.
I should say the bill is in civil justice, and Ms. McBath and I spent the morning in the Senate talking to Senate leaders in the minority and majority parties.
Somebody comment on what impact you think the November elections or even the May primaries could have on the legislatures when they decide to look at the bill, or if they decide to look at the bill?
You know, all I can say is that this shouldn't be about politics. This is about people's lives. This is about Jordan. This is about Trayvon. This is about children that are growing up on the streets, that are in danger. And I would hope that they don't move the bill not because of politics, that they don't move it because it's bad legislation. And I would hope that we don't have to deal with this lame duck because of just avoiding it during the legislative process. Sure.
Also, I wanted to speak to the citizens of Ohio and the legislators today about the caveat of stand your ground in jury instructions. And so I know that the legislators here will be taking a look at that. What actually happened in our case is that even though Michael Dunn did go under the guise of self-defense, that was what he was commanding, was self-defense. He was defending himself. In the jury instructions that the jurors were given in deliberation, in that 40-some-odd pages, that whole paragraph of stand your ground statute was included. So that is a big, big problem, a big component of it, that it confuses the jurors, and it gives the jurors another idea to think, well, maybe this individual was, you know, standing his ground, there's immunity there. So we believe that was very much a part of what happened in our trial, that the jurors could not come to a conviction for Michael Dunn on actual murder, even though there was so much evidence and so much testimony, you know, that he actually did have preconceived notions of doing what he did. But because of that jury instruction alone, that's what caused us to have a mistrial. So I do know that that is something that your legislators will begin taking a look at here in the state of Ohio.
Did you?
No, not.
Oh, okay.
I
got a question.
Yeah.
What is the governor's stance in Florida on the stand your ground law right now, since the trials transpired, documents is being provided back and forth, transcripts? So what's his stance right now, and what's the status of the case right now?
From all accounts right now, the stance is they all believe that the law is working. They absolutely believe that the law is working. We will go back and retry Jordan's charges in May. Some evidence that we were unable to produce or, you know, bring to light beforehand, because, you know, once you start a trial, there's some evidence you just can't bring in at that point. Hopefully we'll have more evidence at that point that we can, you know, bring to trial. Because no longer now are there the additional charges. We'll have just the charges of Jordan, so there will probably more than likely just be a 6-person jury at this point. So we're going back into court for sentencing March 24th. And so the sentencing is basically Mr. Dunn will be sentenced upon the 3 charges for the boys, 20 years minimum per charge, and then also shooting a missile in an open public arena, public place. So he can receive up to 15 years of a conviction for that.
Has anybody launched a civil suit against the state of Florida for having such a law that they know is detrimental to African American males who are the primary target of such white individuals since 1866? Has anybody launched a Title 42, 1983?
To my knowledge at this point, I'm not aware of any civil suit for the state of Florida.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
You said you met with folks in the Senate and House committees earlier today. Did you get a chance to meet with Representative Terry Johnson at all, who's sponsoring the bill, or any of the proponents, I guess?
We met with Senator Seitz' staff, and we met with the policy aides in the Senate Majority Caucus because Senator Faber was not in during this time. We only had Lucia for a few hours here. We also met with the Senate Minority Leader, but we really had time for only 2 or 3 meetings, unfortunately, given our schedule.
And what were those interactions like with some of the proponents?
You want me to go ahead and characterize?
They seem to be listening. Specifically, when we talked about the jury instructions, they definitely seem to be unaware that that component alone would have any kinds of, problems for jurors and making deliberations and coming to, convictions for people that are using this immunity. So they seem to be a little surprised by that. They have asked, of course, to get more information based upon Ohio law, how that would affect the law here going forward in the future.
Any other questions? And if not, Lucy will be around for one-on-ones if you need them, or any of our other guests. Just let us know. And thank you for coming.